You are on call. The web deploy needs a quick log check. You paste a command with a long hostname, a non-standard port, a deploy user, and a private key path. One character is wrong, so SSH asks for the wrong key, or worse, you connect as the wrong user to the wrong machine. That is not a skill problem. That is an interface problem. Your shell history should not be your inventory system. Today, we replace that fragile line with 2 words: SSH web. The SSH config file is the client-side configuration file for OpenSSH. For your user account, it lives at /SSH config. This is not SSHD config, the server daemon config under etc SSH. This file tells your SSH client what you mean when you type a short name. It can store the real hostname, the login user, the port, the identity file, and many other client options. At the foundations level, think of it as a controlled address book for SSH. Done well, one file documents your whole fleet: production web, staging database, lab routers, jump boxes, and local virtual machines. The file is made of host blocks. A line like host web starts a block that matches the name you type after SSH. Inside that block, indented lines set options. Indentation is not strictly required by OpenSSH, but use it anyway because humans read this file. Matching is top to bottom. The important rule is this: for each setting, the first value obtained wins. That means order matters. Put specific hosts first. Put broad defaults, especially host star, at the bottom. If host star appears at the top and sets user or port, your later host blocks may not override those values the way you expect. Here is the basic block. Host web is the alias. It is the short name you type, SSH web. Hostname is the real DNS name or IP address the client connects to. User is the remote account, so you do not have to type deploy at every login. Port is the TCP port for SSH on that server. If you omit it, OpenSSH uses 22. IdentityFile points to the private key your client should try for this host. Save this in /.ssh/config. Use mkdir-p/.ssh, chmod 700 on the directory. Touch the config file, and chmod 600 on the file. Those permissions are boring until they save you from weird client warnings. Let's make it concrete. Before this file, your deploy command might be ssh-i-ssh-id-ed25519-p2222, deploy at web-01.example.com. That is not terrible once. It is terrible when you type it 10 times a day, paste it into tickets, or hand it to a teammate. Put the block in config once. Now the operating command is SSH web. If you want to see what OpenSSH resolved after reading your config, run SSH-G web. That prints the final client configuration for that alias. It is excellent for troubleshooting because it shows the computed hostname, user, port, identity files, and many defaults. The first mistake is confusing host with hostname. Host is the nickname. Hostname is the real destination. The second mistake is putting host star at the top. Because first value wins, defaults belong at the bottom where they fill gaps instead of blocking specific settings. Third, be careful with IdentityFile. If your agent has many keys loaded, OpenSSH may still offer agent keys too. Later we will cover identities only yes for noisy environments. Fourth, treat this file as sensitive inventory. It usually does not contain passwords, and it should not, but it may reveal internal host names, usernames, ports, and roles. Back it up responsibly, and do not paste it into public tickets. This file is the glue between many SSH topics. Yesterday and tomorrow, keys matter because IdentityFile tells the client which key to use. Known hosts matters because once hostname resolves to the real server, the client still verifies the server identity. Later, proxy jump will let one alias reach a private host through a bastion without turning your command line into spaghetti. Include lets you split a big fleet into smaller files. Match lets you apply options based on conditions. But the first useful win is simple: aliases for the hosts you administer every week. Here is your 5-minute lab on a machine you own. Create //SSH if it does not exist. Set it to 700. Create //SSH config and set it to 600. Add a host local test block. Use hostname 127.0.0.1. For user, replace user with the output of id-u-n, which is your local login name. You do not need an SSH server running to inspect the config. Run SSH-G local test and confirm that hostname, user, and default port are what you expect. If you do have SSHD running locally or on a VM, try SSH local test. Recap in 3 beats. First, no/SSH config turns long, error-prone SSH commands into stable aliases like SSH web. Second, the basic directives are host, hostname, user, port, and IdentityFile. Third, order matters because first value wins, so specific host blocks go first, and host star defaults go at the bottom. Build this file slowly, and it becomes living documentation for your fleet. Tomorrow we keep building the foundation with another SSH topic from zero to expert. New SSH episode daily on this channel, and the daily ranked CVE brief is linked in the description.